Okay, so there were 12 steps, right? And out of those 12 steps, we discussed first few, I don't remember. So we have to identify the left turn, whether they are protected or permitted, and the criteria for making them protected is you have the volume criteria and you have the safety criteria. Then you have to identify the lane groups, and lane groups are consist of all the lanes having the same capacity, and the capacity changes when you change any of the movements. Then you calculate V by S ratios, volume upon saturation flow rate ratios, and for each phase you can have a critical lane group. Critical lane group is the one which has the highest V by S ratio, and you have to develop the phasing plan. Then phasing plan means that okay, phasing plan means yes, that which movements will go on together and which movements will happen in the next phase and so on. And in the phasing plan you have to come up with the minimum V by S or summation of V by S ratio. Okay, and if V by S ratio, if with your phasing plan the V by S ratio is 1 or more, that means you will not have any adequate timing for the signal. And then there are some notations given. Okay, uh, odd numbers for left turning, even numbers for through, and the right turning has the through plus 10, and pedestrian movements are shown with letter P, and they have the same number as the through movement, and the major movement is coded first and then the minor movements and so on. Then you calculate the yellow and all red interval. Why do we need the yellow and all red interval? Yellow and all red together, they are known as clearance, and they are for the dilemma zone where the driver is undecisive whether to stop or go. Okay, so yellow is for the dilemma zone and all red is for the vehicle who has already entered the intersection during yellow to pass through the intersection safely. This is the equation, the complete equation for clearance interval. The first two terms are for yellow, the last term is for all red time. Then the loss time, two types of loss times, startup loss time and clearance loss time. We already discussed about clearance. Startup is the extra headway caused by the first few vehicles in the queue. Okay, and the recommended values are given, you can see here. Then you have to select a volume to capacity ratio for the whole intersection. Okay, now this is different from V by S. Okay, V by S was volume upon saturation flow rate for each lane group. This is volume upon capacity for the entire intersection. So, okay, so it is like a summation, like a summation. But here we are talking about the actual capacity of the lane, not saturation flow rate. Can someone tell me what is the difference between the actual capacity of a lane on the intersection as and saturation flow rate? What is the difference between them? Actual capacity and saturation flow rate. What is the difference?
The actual capacity is how many vehicles will pass during the effective green time, but the saturation flow rate is the theoretical value.
Yeah, yeah, good, good, good. Yeah, this is correct. So volume to capacity ratio is denoted with XC. Okay, and if XC is 1, that means volume is exactly equal to capacity in the peak hour. And ideally or theoretically, this will give you a perfect timing plan for each movement. You exactly have the time which is required for that movement. The exact time required for that movement is given. Okay, if volume capacity ratio is 1, but we know that our calculations and our volumes may have some fluctuations. Okay, the actual volume may have a lot of fluctuation. So if you take xc equal to 1, then that can mean that when fluctuation happens, especially on the higher side, your intersection will no longer be efficient. So we keep some margin for these fluctuations, and usually this margin is between 10 to 15%. Okay, So 10 to 15% means that 10 to 15% less than 1, because 1 means exactly equal and 10 to 15% margin means that 10 to 15% less than 1. Okay, so usually XC is taken between 0.85 to 9, sorry, 0.85 to 0.9. Okay, and it basically it acts as a spare capacity. Okay, so for example, if I take XC as 0.85, so in the peak hour, my volume, the volume which I've estimated, is only 85% of the capacity of the intersection. So that means there is an extra 15% capacity available for the fluctuations or for any unpredicted volume. Okay, so taking XC less than 1 gives you some margin of error and margin of safety and some spare capacity even in the peak hour. Then you calculate the cycle length. For calculating cycle length, we have two equations. This is the normal equation which we have used earlier in the traffic engineering course as well, and this is another equation which is mentioned by this book, and this is the Webster's equation. And if you remember, we have used Webster's equation for, I think, calculating, I forgot. I think we used it for calculating delay, I guess, in the previous chapter. No, we were using it for the weaving, no, sorry, yeah, the side distance, sorry, the side distance. When we are calculating side distance for the intersections, we had two approaches. One was a normal approach using the stopping distance, and the other one was using the Webster's approach, where he proposed some distances, that the distance should be this much between the two vehicles and so on. Okay, so Webster's, Webster has done a lot of things, so he has given us an equation for calculating cycle length as well. Okay, and you can use both equations. In this book, they have not given any preference to any of these equations, but if you look at other traffic engineering books, this equation is more commonly used. This one, the first one, is more commonly used, and we have used it in the traffic engineering course as well. Now, L means total lost time. L means total lost time. XC is V by C ratio, and V by S. Okay, the V by S ratio for each lane group, for each critical lane group in the phase, and you add all of them to get the summation of V by S. Okay, so V by S is volume to saturation flow rate ratio for each lane group, and then you see how many critical lane groups you have, and you add their V by S ratios. The range for cycle length is recommended from 40 to 180 seconds. Okay, so if you give a cycle length less than 40 seconds, then basically the signal will change very rapidly. 40 seconds for the entire cycle length. So that means green, yellow, all red will happen very fast. So it may not give enough time for the vehicles to adjust. Okay, and if you give more than 180 seconds, then it means that each side will have a very long waiting period. Okay, in that case, obviously you will have a long queue at that side. So we don't, and drivers get more frustrated if they are not moving. Okay, so if even if you cannot go through the intersection in one cycle, but if you are still moving, like after every 1 minute you are moving ahead in the queue, you tend to feel relaxed. Okay, and then whatever cycle length you get from these equations, we have to do some rounding off, so we round up. Okay, so if the cycle length is less than 80 seconds, we round up to the nearest 5 seconds. If it is more than 80 seconds, we round up to the nearest 10 seconds. And this is because if the cycle length itself is very small and you are rounding up to 10 seconds, then it will make the cycle length larger. Okay, so this is usually what we do as well when you are doing your calculations. With the amount is very small itself, you will round up to a very small number. Okay, but if the amount is bigger, then up to 10 seconds doesn't make any difference. So here they are saying XC 0.8 to 0.9 for pre-timed signals and semi-actuated signals. So for pre-timed and semi-actuated signals, we keep a higher margin of safety. Remember we said XC provides a margin of safety. XC less than 1 provides a margin of safety or spare capacity. So 0.8 to 0.9 for pre-timed and semi-actuated, and 0.9 to 0.95. So we keep less margin of safety for actuated signals. Can someone guess the reason for this difference. Why pre-timed signals have more margin of safety than actuated signals? Actuated means they have sensors in all directions. So why do we keep less margin of safety for these actuated signals? Can someone tell me? Yes. Any guess? Any guesses?
Because for the activated شو اسمه what there is sensors and it will deal with the traffic by the sensor, so the need for safety is less.
Yeah. This is one point, because the point of putting the sensor is actually to take care of the traffic, but sensors are not actually taking care of the traffic. When you develop the timing plan for an actuated signal, I told you earlier, you give the signal a range of cycle length, a range of green times. So you are already giving a range. Okay, so the fluctuation is already taken care of. Okay, when you are designing the signal time. Okay, so this is another reason. Okay, the first reason is obviously correct. You have the sensors, and sensors are working on real-time traffic, so there is supposed to be less unpredicted or less effect of unpredicted volume. But even in the design, you are giving a range for the signal, so you are already accommodating the any changes in the volume. Okay, then you calculate the total effective green time. You have the cycle length, you subtract the lost time. Okay, and then you can calculate the G by C ratio. So what is G by C ratio? A small g is effective green, C is cycle length. So G by C ratio is the proportion of hourly time when the signal is providing movement of vehicles. Okay, the proportion of time from the hour in which the movement of vehicles is allowed, okay, or provided. So for example, if you have a cycle length of 120 seconds and lost time of 4 seconds per phase, and you have 4 phases, okay, so 4 phases means each phase has a lost time of 4 seconds. So 4 phases means 4 into 4, 16 seconds, right? 16 seconds. So 120 minus 16, how much? 120 minus 16 will be how much? 104 seconds, right? So what will be the G by C ratio in this case? 104 upon 120. How much is it? Yeah.
0.86.
0.86. So basically, out of 3,600 seconds of the hour, 86% of that time is available for movement of vehicles, and the remaining is lost time. Okay, the remaining is lost time where no movement is happening. Okay, now if summation of V by S ratios is greater than G by C ratio, that means no timing is possible. Okay, so G by C ratio must be greater than summation of V upon S ratios. Okay, so because V upon S means what? S means saturation flow rate. The signal is completely green for 1 hour. Okay, and V is the volume. So V by S ratio means how much time in the hour you need to get the volume through. Okay, so summation of V by S means how much time, how much proportion of time you need to get all the volumes, from all the sides through the intersection. Okay, so G by C ratio should be more than V by S ratio, so that again you have some spare capacity as well. If they are equal, V by S, summation of V by S and G by C ratio is equal, that means you are providing exactly the same amount of time which was required. That means volume equal to capacity, right? So ideally G by C ratio should be greater, and if Summation of V by S is greater, that means you did not design it properly, signal will not work, it will have very long queues which will keep on extending. Okay, so you find out the total effective green and the G by C ratio, which will give you the amount of time available in the hour for the movement. And then you have, this is how you calculate the, let me make it, this is how you calculate the effective green time for each phase. Effective green time for each phase. So total effective green time, C minus L, upon V by S ratio of the lane group in that phase, the critical lane group in that phase, upon summation of V by S ratio. So the total V by S ratio. Okay, so this is simple. And then you calculate the actual green time. So effective green time is the time during which the vehicles are moving at saturation headway, the minimum headway, and the actual green time is the time during which the signal is showing you green. Okay. So the total time available for a movement is G plus Y plus all red. Total time available for a movement is G plus Y plus all red. You can move during green time, you can move during yellow time, and if you are in the intersection, you can move during all red time as well. So this whole thing is equal to effective green time plus the lost times. Plus the lost times. L1 means the startup lost time. Okay, the extra headway consumed by the vehicles, the first 3-4 vehicles in the queue, and L2 means the time which is not utilized by the vehicle at the end. Now the clearance loss time. Okay, L2 is the clearance loss time. Now what they are saying about L2 is, usually L2 is supposed to be equal to the all red time. L2 is supposed to be equal to the all red time. The clearance time when all movements have red. But actually what happens when you see the signal turning yellow and you feel you are far from the intersection, so even the last maybe half a second or 1 second of yellow time is not utilized, because you are afraid, you've already made up your mind, people who are coming towards the intersection and they see the signal turning yellow and they are still away from the intersection, so they already make up their mind that we will not be able to go through. Okay, so they reach the intersection and the signal is still yellow, but they have already made up their mind and they stop. So even the last half a second or 1 second of yellow is not utilized. Okay, so the clearance loss time includes the all red time and last second or a fraction of a second of the yellow interval. Okay, so this is L2. So now from this equation you can put G on one side and everything else on the other side. So this is the equation for calculating the actual green time. Okay, and they have a parameter which is extension of green time, which is known as E. So E is extension of effective green time or extension of green time into the yellow interval. Okay, extension of green time into the yellow interval. So you have the full, you have the yellow interval and you have the all red time. From them you subtract L2. So L2 is the time during which no vehicle will enter the intersection. Obviously they will not enter during all red because the signal is red, and like I said, they do not enter also for the last 1 second or maybe fraction of a second of yellow as well. Okay, so up to this point the green time is extended, meaning vehicles keep on entering in the intersection up to this time. Okay, up to L2. So yellow plus all red minus L2 will give you the extension of green time, which is E. Okay, so in this equation you can replace Y plus AR minus L2 by E. Okay, so this is another equation for calculating the actual green time. You can use this equation or this equation, doesn't make much difference. Okay, then the minimum green times are given: 15 seconds for major streets through movement and 7 seconds for minor streets. Okay, so these are the minimum green time. So once you calculate the green time, you check it with these values. If you are not getting these values, then you replace the actual green time with this. Okay, so actual green time was, let's say, 10 seconds, minimum is 15 seconds, replace 10 with 15. Okay, and then you increase the cycle time according to that. Okay, then you check for pedestrian timing. Okay, let me make it bigger. You check for pedestrian timing. We assume the pedestrian speed to be 3.5 feet per second, which is the 15th percentile speed. So we are trying to cover 15%. So only so there are 85% drivers, 85% pedestrians who are going at more than this value. Okay, so we are on the safer side. Okay, there are only 15% pedestrians who are going lower than this value. Okay, their speed is lower than this. Okay, so they need more time. So we are again covering 85% drivers, because 85% drivers are passing the road at 3.5 seconds or more. If you feel this is not good, you can use 3 feet per second as well as a speed, and this is used when you have elderly or disabled pedestrians expected to cross from that street. Okay, and as I said, they are giving you the percentile as well, so you can collect your own data and you can calculate the 15th percentile yourself. Okay, now the rule is green plus yellow plus all red should be less than or equal to the minimum pedestrian required time. Green plus yellow plus all red should be less than or equal to minimum pedestrian required time. Okay, so the pedestrian required time, I think this should be reversed. Pedestrian required time should be like this. Yes, so you can make the correction in the slides. Okay, green plus yellow plus all red should be more than or equal to the pedestrian required time. Okay, if it is not, then you increase the green time and then you adjust the timings of the cycle as well. Okay, so this is how you calculate the minimum pedestrian required timing. Timing for the walk interval and the timing for flashing don't walk interval. So there are two intervals here: walk interval and don't walk interval. Flashing don't walk interval. Okay, so flashing don't walk interval is like a yellow interval for the pedestrians. Flashing don't walk is basically like a yellow interval for the pedestrians. So they have the warning that the signal is about to turn green for the vehicles. Okay, so it is flashing don't walk, but the signal is still red for the vehicles. Okay, so somebody is already on the road and now he has to move faster. He has to move faster. So in some books they recommend that the timing, the speed to calculate the flashing don't walk interval should be taken more than 3.5 seconds. But in this book they are saying take 3.5 seconds, no problem. But in some other books they recommend, since the pedestrian knows the signal is flashing, it is about to turn green for it is about to turn green for the vehicles, so I should move faster. So during this interval, the flashing don't walk interval, their speed is usually higher than normal. Okay, so if normal is 3.5, in this interval it should be more. Okay, so the walk interval is normally 5 to 7 seconds. Okay, and the don't walk interval can be calculated using this ratio. W is the width, the crossing width, and speed of the pedestrians. Okay, divided by speed of the pedestrians, and as I said, you can take 3.5 seconds or maybe a higher speed as well. Let us look at an example. Okay, I have two examples, not two examples. I have one example and a problem. So we will look at this example today, and in the next class, we will inshallah solve the other problem. Okay. So we have this intersection. You can see the assignment of the lanes. Okay, so this is the major street. Obviously, it has 45 miles per hour speed. Okay, and this is the minor street. Okay, the lane widths are given. Median width on each side is given, and I will assume it to be the same. 0% trucks. That means these values are already in passenger cars per hour. Otherwise, you have to go back and calculate the heavy vehicle adjustment factor and convert them into passenger cars per hour. Okay, because the saturation flow rates are given in passenger cars per hour. Peak hour factor is given. Okay, what else? And these are the volumes from each side for each movement. Okay, so the volumes are given. Now the first thing we have to do is identify the left turnings. Okay, the left turnings whether they should be permitted or protected. They should be permissive or protected. So here they are saying it should be protected. Okay, as I said, in this example, I've already shown you the criteria. If you want, you can apply the criteria. For example, the criteria was for two opposing lanes. If you have two opposing lanes, then the multiplication of this volume, the left turning volume into opposing volume, should be, I think, 90,000 for two opposing lanes and 50,000 for one opposing lane. Okay, so if you want to apply this criteria, then take this left turning volume, multiply with this volume. If it is less than 50,000, you can make the left turning permissive. Okay, and in this direction, take this volume, multiply by the two through movements here, and if it is more than 90,000, not the through movement, like the movement in these two lanes, and if it is more than less than 90,000, you can go for permissive left turn movement. Okay, so for example, if you take this 300, okay, and multiply with this 550 plus 50 600, so 300 into 600 will give you how much? 300 into 600, how much? 3 6 are 18, right? And it will be 180,000, right? 180,000. Okay, so obviously in this direction it should be protected. Okay, and then if you want, you can provide a combined permissive protected movement as well. Okay, but in this direction you can see it should be permitted. Okay, you can check on the other direction as well. So 200 into the summation of 950. Okay, like 950. So 200 into 950 obviously will give you more than 90,000. And then for this side, you will take 150 multiplied by 400. Okay, so again, I think it will be more than 50,000. So applying the volume criteria means will result in having all left turns protected. My recommendation is, even if you get one or two left turns protected, take all the left turnings that protected, because it will create confusion. Having a combined permissive protected left turning movements will create confusion in the minds of the drivers. Okay, now the second step was to identify the lane groups. Now this is, they have already identified the lane groups. So I told you lane groups change whenever you have a change in movement of the lane. Okay, so you can see here on each side, each lane group, each lane has at least one different movement. For all sides, each lane has at least one different movement than the other lanes. For example, if you come here, the northbound side, so this one is left turn and this one is straight and through. Come on this side, the westbound, you have left turning, then you have only straight, and then you have straight and right. Okay, so again, in these two cases, you can see one movement is added in this lane. Okay, so they will be in different lane groups. So you have two lane groups on this side, three lane groups on this side, two here as well, and three here. Okay, if we had two lanes or three lanes which are having exactly the same movements, then they can be combined in the same lane group. Okay, but in this case it is not possible. So we have three lane groups here and two lane groups on the north south side. Now we have discussed about movement groups earlier as well, although it is not required, but just for the sake of practice, can you tell me how many movement groups can be on this side? So movement groups consist of the lanes in which there is at least one movement shared. Okay, there is one common movement. So how many movement groups can I have on this side, the westbound side? How many movement groups I have? Are they 3? Are they 2? Or is it 1? obviously it cannot be less than 1 and more than 3. How many movement groups we have? 1, 2 or 3?
2.
2, yes. 1 for this one, the left turning, and 2, the second one with the 2 lanes which are sharing the straight movement. Okay, they have a common movement, so they will be in the same lane group. Okay, for the north south, no problem, 2 lanes, 2 lane groups. Okay, because there is no common movement between them. Okay, so we have the lane groups now. Now for each lane group, okay, we have to calculate the demand, and you will calculate, you will convert the demand by dividing with the peak hour factor, okay, into flow rate. As I told you, the demand is already in passenger cars per hour. The demand is already in passenger cars per hour, so I'm not converting them to passenger cars per hour. Okay, otherwise you would have done that as well. That would have been an extra step. Okay, so first of all, you take the flow which is given for each direction. The flow rates are given, the volumes are given for each direction, and you take the volume and you divide it by peak hour factor. Okay, if it was in vehicles per hour, you would have divided with the heavy vehicle adjustment factor as well. Okay, so volumes divided by peak hour factor here. Then you have to assign these flow rates, the flow rates which you have calculated after dividing, you have to assign them to each lane group. You have to assign them to each lane group. So for example, northbound 1 lane group, so they have coded the lane groups. Okay, so northbound 1 is the lane group which is taking the left turn. So for left turn, I have only 1 lane, so all the left turning flow rate will go in that lane. Okay, so it will have all the left turning flow rate. Okay, northbound 2, straight and right, and there is no other lane for straight or right, so all this will go in this lane. So 369. 369 is 316 plus 53. Okay, so all the flow rate for straight and right will go to this lane. Okay, now southbound 1, same thing, 1 lane for left turning and 1 lane for straight and right. Now in east and west, we have 2 lanes, and in east and west, left turn, no problem. We have only 1 lane for left turning, so all the flow rate for left turning will go in that lane. Westbound 1 and eastbound 1. Okay, so eastbound 1 has all the left turning lane from the eastbound, and westbound 1 has all the left turning flow rate from the westbound. Now what will happen to eastbound 2 and eastbound 3? Now eastbound 2 and 3 are sharing a movement, right? They are sharing a movement. So what will happen to this shared movement? So the total through volume for eastbound is 900. How much of that 900, 947, I'm talking about the flow rate. So how much of this 947 should be given to eastbound 2 lane group, and how much should be given to eastbound 3 lane group? Normally this data comes from the field. You go to the field and observe out of all the vehicles which are going through, how many choose the exclusive lane and how many are choosing the shared lane. Okay, this data should come from the field, but a reasonable assumption is that 55% vehicles will choose the lane which is exclusive, and 45% vehicles will choose the lane which is shared. So eastbound 2 or westbound 2 will have 55% of the total through flow rate, and eastbound 3 and westbound 3 will have the remaining 45%. So the through movement will be divided like this, and obviously for the right turning, there's only 1 lane available, eastbound 3 and westbound 3. So complete right turning flow rate will go in that lane. So you have the flow rates for each lane group. Then you have the saturation flow rate, which is coming from the previous topic. We had a range 1700 to 1900, and from that range they have taken some values. And I've already explained in the previous topics, if you have the headway, you can calculate these values yourself. Okay, but for the time being, we'll take it as they are saying. Okay, so we will calculate V by S ratio for each lane group. So V means the volume which we have calculated upon S, the saturation flow rate. So you have the V by S ratio for each lane group. Now if you add the saturation, V by S ratio for all the lane groups, it comes out to be 1.71. Okay, so for example, if you go that for each lane group I will give a separate phase, that means you will end up having a summation of V by S ratio more than 1.7. So I told you earlier, more than one summation of V by S means no possible signal timing. Okay, so we cannot give a phase for each lane group, and this is not the case. You know, some groups are combined together in one phase. So they have given you three different signal phasing plans here. Okay, and they are given in order: pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3. So in pattern 1 they are going with the easiest arrangement of the phases. Okay, so you can see here through and left turn together, which is normally the case, right? Through movement and left turn for the same side happen together. Okay, so you can see here through and left turn together for all movements. This is for eastbound, this is for westbound, this is for northbound, this is for southbound. Okay, and the V by S ratios for these movements are shown here. Now I told you yesterday that normally we try to bring the so these are two lane groups happening. Okay, in this phase, out of these two, this one will be critical because it is higher. Okay, and this one will be critical here. So in each phase you can identify the critical lane group. Now normally we try to keep the lane groups which have similar ratios together. The lane groups which have similar ratios, we try to keep them together. And you can see here 0.19 is very small compared to very low compared to 0.27, right? Similarly 0.17 is higher compared to 0.12 and so on and so forth. So here they are not matching with each other. Okay, if you now, can we rearrange them to have similar or closer ratios in the same phase? Is it possible? If it is not possible, fine, because now if you calculate the summation of critical lane groups V by S ratio, you are getting it less than 1. So you can stop here if you want. If you want, you can stop here. Okay, you will get some practical signal timings. Okay, but is there a rearrangement possible where similar V by S ratios can be merged together? Okay, so yes, it is possible. Yes, it is possible in this case, because you can merge 0.19 and 0.12 together. Okay, so they are closer than these two values. Okay, and you can merge 0.27 and 0.17 together as well. Okay, and these straight movements can happen together, and these two left turnings can happen together without any conflict. So merging them, rearranging them will not have any conflict. Similarly, north-south movements, again, same thing. 0.09 this left turn, 0.09 this left turn, you can do them in the same phase, and these two can happen in the same phase. Okay, if you want, you say, okay, I can 0.19 and 0.12, even if I do them in the same phase, it is not much different than what is happening right now. So I will not rearrange this side, I will only rearrange this side. This is also possible because you are not introducing any conflict, and this is the possible arrangement of phases. Okay, so if you only want to rearrange this one, because here you can clearly see 0.09, 0.09, they are very close to each other, and 0.19, 0.23 are very close to each other, and you just want to rearrange them here, this is also fine. But they did it on both the sides, east-west as well as north-south. Okay, so now you can see the rearrangement. So left turning happening together, and through movement happening together. Okay, now here you can see, okay, this 0.27, okay, is longer, okay, than all the movements happening here. Okay, now if I can overlap this 0.27 into this phase as well, then this movement will have more time. Okay, if I can overlap this 0.27 again. Now if you add the V by S ratio for critical movements, 0.19 plus 0.27, 0.09 plus 0.23, again, now you have made it better. It was 0.86 earlier, now it is 0.78. So you have made it better, and it is less than 1. You can stop here. You can stop here if you want. Okay, but you can see here 0.27, if you overlap it, this movement needs more time. So if you overlap it with this phase, it will be better. Okay, so this is the overlapping which they have done. So they are saying 0.12 and 0.19, this will happen together. So obviously it will make sense if 0.12 has less time, okay, and 0.27 will be extended into this phase as well. Okay, so again, there is no conflict here. Okay, this left turn and this one can happen together, and this left turn is happening in the other phase, so there's no conflict here. And this is the other side. Okay, and now if you add the critical V by S ratio, so 0.12 plus 0.27 plus 0.09 plus 0.23 is 0.71. So now it is even better than the previous one. It is even better than the previous one. Okay, so this is where they are stopping. Like I said, if you develop this V by S ratio less than 1, you can stop, but it is not better. Better will be if you keep the movements with same V by S ratio and having known conflict in the same phase. So they did it in the second pattern. Okay, and again, so V by S ratio summation improved, it reduced, which is good, but you can still make it better by giving more time to the movements which are having higher V by S ratio by extending them into another phase, by overlapping them with the other phase, which is what they have done here, and this is the final plan according to them. Okay, there are some other steps as well, but we don't have time, so I will discuss it on Thursday, inshallah. So I'm going for the attendance. If you have any questions, you can ask me.